Hi and welcome to Sonia and watercolor demonstration on my rooster. So I'm just going to bring up my image, and while I'm waiting for my image to come up, I'm just going to wet my entire rooster here with just a very soft Da Vinci brush. I'm not worrying about being in the lines. We can have some fun with that. There we go. So we're pretty much all wet. Looking just to see, I can see all the dampness around this area in here and up here and there, right at the edges of the rooster. Let's try and make it nice and interesting. Okay, so having done that, I'm going to start with a raw sienna in some of the area, but this is a beautiful orange in some of the areas too. So I'm just pulling up the image, and here we go. Take a screenshot of it. Here we are. Okay. So you can see here that it's beautiful. There is a little bit of that raw sienna. Look at that. There's some turquoise in here too. And we're going to let that go down into the kind of the raw sienna leggies. So even in here, I could do a little bit of it. We'll try and keep it some lights and then some nice darks there, a little bit of dark here, and a lot of fun up at the top here on the crown. So let's just put that aside. And first thing I'll do, I mentioned raw sienna. So let's get the raw sienna in there. And we're just going to pop a really light color of raw sienna into this area here. And then bring it down into his legs. And it doesn't have to be perfect. Let that just kind of filter out. Okay. There's obviously a lot more water on that left leg because it's moving around a bit. Okay. And I'll try and push that back a bit. So that's all we really want to do at this point. And I could put in a little bit more of the raw sienna in here. Quite nice there. And notice what I'm trying to do. I'm really trying to just make it loose. So let's, now that it's all really nice and wet, if I put this in here, what happens? Because we have to be careful that if we put too much in, it's just going to flare out. But we want it to be fairly loose. So let's just, I'm using the tip here and just seeing where the water is going to take it. It was a little lighter on this side here where that little part is. I'm just going to drop it in there and just get those combs right up at the top there, maybe a little bit. Just let it make it interesting. There we go. Okay, so now I'm going to take some more of the pigment and then just drop it in the base here. Really just having fun with color. All right, now that we've done that, there was a hint of that red in the lake. I'm just going to drop in a bit there. Oh yeah, that's really having fun there. Okay, so now we're going to go with an orange. My pyrrole orange was in another tray here. Where are you? One second. I just moved everything and that color just disappeared. Oh, here it is. All right. Here it is. And I'm just going to pop it in there. Maybe a bit too reddish. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to my other color here. Here it is. There it is. Now we've got it. So basically with the way the feathers are, you just kind of give it a little bit of stroke. I've almost got too much pencil mark, and I was going to erase some of these things, but you kind of need to know where it is. So I'm now just putting in just strokes of color for those feathers, right? So it is very loose, and I'm going to have to probably put another couple strokes in, maybe add a little bit of lifting involved to get some of those lights back. When I say lifting, I'm just looking for the other brush that I had here. Whoops, just shaking this. I've got another tray here too. Here it is. And it's a dry brush, synthetic, a 4, and you would just come in and you'd kind of lift it out. Even this is too big. You clean it each time when you're lifting it, and just to get some of those bits of white in there. a flat brush might be better for this process. Let's find myself a flat brush here. Don't need much, you just need a little bit. So this is quite a large flat brush, but it'll work. So the idea being you just take that edge and just kind of, whoop, I've got some blue in here. Oh, very good. That's what I needed. I needed that turquoise. Let's put that in there right now. Okay, and it's actually in a few different places. Wow, that's kind of cool. Didn't even have to pick it up. I'm just picking up a little bit more because there were some nice pieces right in here, just in there. I'll just put that in there. Bring my picture back, and I'm just going to reposition this a bit. So there was some nice right in here, that turquoise. And where I see it now is at the base of these beautiful orange feathers, kind of in there. And it came down a bit more, and there were some beauties right in here. Just looking if there was anything else. There is a bit up here, a little bit more over here. And, oh, and even in here, just let it be loose and just let it go right in like that. Okay. Okay, so that is as far as we've gotten. Now we get to have fun with our gray. So the idea with the gray is that we will make it not too strong. And actually this flat brush would be a good idea. Okay, so I'm finding my gray. And I've got, let me just show you the tray here. So this is my original mixture, and I need to have it much lighter, so just add the water. You can test it too, but I'm going to test it right on the page here because it's quite dark on this side. So that's perfect. See how that goes out? And you're just basically going to take those feathers, and the best thing is to just bring them right up like that. You can use the side of the brush. Make them loose, have fun with it, right? Look at how the water is just taking it out too, which is great. You could use a little bit of a spray bottle. I think I'm okay in terms of how much I've got because the water is quite strong here. So I'm not going to do any more than that. However, we will be layering more and getting more of that bits, you know, like in the feet here at the base with a bit of shadow and stuff. So we have to be careful because we don't want to get it overly done. We're going to let it dry a bit. And then we'll come in with some detail because there's some nice darks in here and around this area, and this brush is probably just fine, or even a smaller brush. So I'm going to take a break for a minute and we'll be back. I have let the paper dry, and I just started going back in with some smaller brushes that I have. I'm using a rigger brush to actually come in and do some of the fine work on the comb of the rooster. So going back in, coming in and just slowly working through the darks that I see here, even maybe making a little bit more alizarin crimson in this area. This is quite light. It just has tiny bits around the eye a little bit. This is actually all black back here. There's a little bit more black and a little yellow down here. It would be here. I could add a little bit more in here. Just in this part over here, and definitely the back here. Now what I can also do is a little bit more alizarin in there, a little bit more back here. This is also darker, and a little bit more here, with the rest is very light. So I can take a little bit of my brush, dab it a little bit, and then just soften so it doesn't look so much of a transition. Same here. Just soften it and just bring it down. Okay, and I'll bring it in a bit more in here. going to stop for a moment, and I'm just going to go get my alizarin, and I'll be right back. Welcome back. I'm going to bring this down just a bit so you have a bit closer view. There we go. Okay, so I was using a rigger. I got in some of the dark reds that I wanted. And there are a little bit of alizarin colors in here that I noticed right around the edge of the rooster's comb. So in here a little bit more is a little bit more alizarin. In here too, it's just a bit. I'll let that just spread around. And up here, just in this area in here. Oh, in here too, just a little bit in there. I can even put a bit over here where the beak is. And then it transitions more into a really deep kind of alizarin almost, and more Payne's gray. So I'm going to leave that and let that sit here for a minute. I'll just soften this up a bit here. Maybe add a little bit more of the red. A little bit more up here, I think. It really lightened up, even though I put in 2 layers, I think. Okay, so let's leave that drying. And now I'm going to take a small flat brush and work with my pyrrole orange, if I can. Here, I think this is what my pyrrole orange looks like. And just going to try and get in some of those feather aspects. It's kind of a layered process, so I could do it more on the edge and just leave some of those colors, you know, and just work through, or I could leave it very much more loose and just kind of add it here and there. Such beautiful color though. So you could use any kind of burnt sienna orange, mixed together, different colors, and just layer them in. And you could even just dab it along like this too. It's all dry now, so the only way I'm going to get any more moisture coming in, making it soften it up, is if I actually add the moisture by spraying on there, or adding the moisture by putting more water in my pigment. Don't know if you can see, I can just working around that area, looking at where the darks are. And you can use the tip just to kind of get that last bit of those feathers coming down in between the turquoise. And there are some of the beautiful colors right in here. And then further down where I had some of the lights going on. There. Okay, so now we're going to get into more of the gray. And so now we're going to work slowly here. Let's hope it's not too wet still, and bring in some of this nice dark. So I'm going to take the side of my brush and then now incorporate it a little bit more into the feathers so that we get a little bit more of a feeling for those little bits of black that are in there. And then it comes up just underneath the comb here. And I need to darken my color here a bit more. And up here we can just put a little bit in here, out here a bit. Careful now because it's still a bit wet in here. I don't want to do too much. There's a little bit in here. We'll do the eye. Tiny bit on the beak. We wait for the eye because this is still too wet in here. And you notice I'm just using the tip. So I'll bring in just a bit more down in here, and I could use even a smaller brush for that. Every so often you see a bit. Just going to dab in a bit here and there. And now I'm going to do some more strokes. This is still wet, but it'll be just a nice feeling. There, now we bring it down in here. And we can do bigger strokes and just have fun with that. Just softly bring that kind of flare out like the feathers are. Need some more paint, and we've got really nice bloomers here that I will add in some nice dark color into. And try and get that in there. Okay, and then the other bloomer right in here. Need some darker paint. So I could just brush out. Just looking where all my really good darks are. Now it's a bit of dry brushing, which will be fun. If you can just kind of incorporate that. So we keep those nice lights from some of these feathers. Okay, I'm looking at here just to see. I'll bring the chicken a little rooster a little further out so you can see it was quite light in some of these areas. This needs a bit dark in here, just underneath him right here, and then maybe a bit more here, back here a bit. There's a bit there, just a bit in here. This stayed pretty light, but darker here. That stayed pretty light. And the bloomer was definitely darker. And then on the back, definitely nice and dark here. And beautifully dark right in here. Here was much lighter. Just kind of maybe even too much. This was a bit darker. I'm just going to dry brush that in. This was just a bit darker in here. Same here. Now, there's a few places where there was a kind of a line in the center and it just brushed out. You can do that if you want to, or even just add just a little on the edge. I'm going to get some more paint here. Now it's just more about the dry brushing, getting the sense of the bit of feather texture in there. This was a bit darker in here. And just maybe a bit up in here. Okay, so then I would just put in a little bit more. I'm just looking for my other rigger, that turquoise that I had. And pop a bit more in here. Even a phthalo blue would be nice because it's quite a staining color and it could come in and, oh yeah, look at that. Add just a bit of that shadow in there and even just a few bits of extra color in here. Even just a few strokes in here to get that feeling of the feathers. There we go. And I'm just looking, what else do I see up in this area? is I really just see that bit of turquoise and just kind of the lights. I could almost, let's just try it. If I took the Quin Gold, just looking for my Quin Gold, and if I was just to touch in a bit here and there, what would happen? Even here, what would happen if I added a bit of that in there? And we can bring that right down into his legs. It's pretty light around there. And there's just a little bit of shadow underneath. So what I'm going to do now, for fun, is splatter. I'm just going to take another brush here and splatter some of this just like that around. And now a bit of that beautiful pyro orange. And a little bit of my gray. Oh, and a little bit of the turquoise would be good. So I would have done, should have done the turquoise first because I had to wash my brush. There we go. Oh, fantastic. That's what I want. Okay, so I'm just going to wait for a minute and then I can come in and just check how everything's doing because we'll put just a little bit of dark down below here. So we need just a little bit of his toes or claws. And they were just along there, a little bit here, you almost, and then just a little bit of an outline at the base for the shadow. That comes along here and here. Just looking if there was anything particular. I'm not going to go into the detail putting all those rings around, but you could. And I could certainly just put a bit of color in there just for a shadow effect. And just maybe add a little bit of water and let that spray around. That's kind of fun. Great. So now the only thing I really need to do is add a bit of the dark into his eye. That is the eye right in there. A little bit more. And just maybe extend a couple little darks there. Add just a bit of dark in here. This is pretty much the right color in here. Here underneath the chin could be just a bit darker. And underneath this area here. And is there anything else that I want to do? Do I need any darks in here still? Just a wee bit more. Just making sure I've got enough dark for recognizing where the feet are. I'd like a little darker in there, so I'm just going to take the other small flat brush that I had and add a bit more gray in there. Maybe a bit more in here. Here, maybe just a bit more. There. A bit more in here, I think. There's a bit more in there that I like. So I could also spray it now and let it loose a little bit more, but I think we've got a pretty good image from our rooster here. Let's have a look here. Look at that. So let's lift it up a bit so you can see. That was a lot of fun. I really like how the splattering just helped with the background. You didn't have to do anything else. You could always come in with a little bit of, I noticed there's a bit of orange in just the back area here, a couple places here. Just dry brush a bit up in there so that it reflects some of that coloring. But other than that, maybe just a bit back here. I think we've got it. Just a little bit maybe softer in here. Oh, we could take a little bit of that gold, that quin gold. I'm just noticing on the beak, and just let that color come out a bit more here, so they see the beak a bit more here. Anything else? So if I put it in here, will it do anything? Not much. It's not going to separate. It's almost better to lift it a bit. There's a few bits here. Oh, I think we're good. And that is your rooster. Hope you have fun with that. We could even do it even lighter, where we would just take the black and just throw the black in and with water and just let it play around with it. But this is a good rendition. Thanks for watching.